Peace, everyone. We are here with episode 4 of My Brother's Keeper. Today, I have the pleasure and honor of having my husband be interviewed today. So I'm going to have him introduce himself.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. First off, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Babe, it's an honor, it's a pleasure to be on the show. My name is Rahim Mahmoud. I'm Nafisa's husband. And it's an honor and pleasure to have the opportunity to be on the show.
Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about like what you do,
What I do.
maybe some of your previous work history as well.
Man, that's a lot.
I mean, you don't have to go into everything, but just, the gist of... He's currently in law school.
Oh my gosh.
He is a former police officer, graduated from Rutgers University.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-whoop, Rutgers, whatever. But I think that's important. It's not like, this isn't to like brag or anything, but this is just, you never know who might be watching, who might be an officer, or who might be in law school or wanting to go to law school.
Yeah.
And as we talk about mental health, I think those things play a huge role in, how it impacts you. So that's why I'm mentioning it.
No, you're right. You're right. It has played a role.
He's very humble, doesn't like to talk about himself. So we'll see how this goes.
I try.
All right, so first things first. In general, how would you say your overall mental health is right now?
My mental health, I think right now I'm in a better place. I'm definitely better than where I was at years ago. By the grace of Allah and His Christ, and it's just I want to say my mental health is in a state of constant improvement. I think right now where I'm at in life, sometimes it may seem like I'm a little hard on myself, but it's just this drive to be better, better for myself, better for my family, better person so I can serve the God the way I know I should. And so right now, mental health is good, very good. It's very good. My mental health does not want to be complacent. It doesn't want to get comfortable. And so constantly striving, especially with exercise, there's certain things that I want to improve. And I find that physical health has such a great impact on my mental health, and my spiritual health has such a huge impact on my mental health as well. So I'm in a position right now in life where I'm just striving to improve. I hope that answers the question.
And you also touched on some other things, things that help improve your mental health, like exercise, like spirituality. And those things, I think, always go hand in hand. I think that's been a common theme from some of the people that I've interviewed so far, how important those things are to your mental health. How would you say your experience growing up as a black man in America, someone who was trying to navigate maybe merging your worlds of being a young African man, being a black man.
It was interesting.
How has all of that kind of shaped your experiences over the years?
That's I'm glad you asked that question. Very interesting. I'll try my best to be on the surface with that. Whew, that's a lot. I grew up, first off, in a Muslim, a West African, a Ghanaian, and Togolese home. So growing up, it was tough. It's like you looked at my mom's face. You was getting rocked. She gave you that look. You know exactly what's gonna happen when you get home. And that benefited us a lot now. But at the time we didn't really understand. And so to answer your question, at the time it did breed a lot of fear, fear to disappoint, and subsequently it brought about this mentality where you want to please your parents. You know, you don't want to disappoint
Right.
your parents, and that was tough. And then growing up in an environment where, and I think my siblings feel the same way, we never really could identify with like one specific group.
Right.
You know, because growing up in America, we had accents, we spoke another language. Around Americans, we were never really American. And then when we were around Africans, we were never really Africans. And then when we were in a Muslim environment, so much theological differences where if we were around a specific theological group of Muslims, they never really saw us as that Muslim, you know, because of our beliefs and being members of the Nation of Islam. And so it was always this conflict where it's tough to answer this. This conflict where you're never really one identity, you know? But I've learned to really embrace that and use that as my superpower now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was hard because you never really felt accepted anywhere you went. And then to add on that, being a black man, it was this state of constant paranoia. Like you're in the bathroom, and if the wrong people are in the bathroom, you could get jumped. Like growing up like that, it was always, I have to fight. I have to fight, you know? And so I developed this complex where I always felt like I needed to fight to protect myself, and I always felt like I needed to watch my back. And later on in life, I saw how that impacted my mental health. You know, even affecting relationships, friendships, you know? Always this constant need to be on defense mode, you know? And it even has an impact on my career, on why I want to be an attorney. At a young age, I was always fighting. I was getting suspended in school, you know, but I had to learn how to transform that energy and use that energy in another way so I won't get in trouble. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really important, you know, but it sounds like, you know, when you say that you constantly had to fight, it obviously wasn't just physically, right? You had to maybe even like fight to prove yourself that you were enough. I'm Muslim enough. I'm African enough. I'm black enough.
Absolutely.
Like I'm, you know what I mean? I'm all these things.
Absolutely.
So I feel like that could create maybe like some insecurities and things like that.
Of course.
Of constantly trying to prove that you're enough.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate you, you know, being open about that, because I know that you're not the only person who has felt like that, right? So you talked about like kind of how this has led you to choose your career as a lawyer. Can you talk a little bit about both your experiences in law school, going into your 3L, right?
3L, yeah.
And even your experiences as an officer previously.
Yeah.
How have those experiences kind of impacted your mental health as well?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be an attorney, you know, and may Allah bless Sister Dr. Ava's legacy. But seeing examples like her, seeing examples like Brother Saad, examples like Dr. Malik Zuli Shabazz, these were all individuals that I looked up to. So I always knew, like, I was gonna be an attorney. But before I committed myself to that, it was other experiences that I had that I wanted to experience specific career paths before I fully committed to becoming an attorney. And one of those experiences was being a law enforcement officer, and in terms of how that impacted my mental health, uh, it was amazing. First off, it was amazing being able to experience that. But I also saw a lot of the law enforcement training. I was doing it for my personal strengthening my mental health. And some people may not understand, but I had to go through certain things where I had to challenge myself. And one of the most challenging things for me was to take orders from white MPOs and white officers, speak to me in certain ways. That in itself was difficult.
I'm sure.
It was tough. It was tough. Um, but I needed it. I needed to go through that. I needed to go through that. The mental discipline of waking up at certain times and those 5-mile runs, and you're as strong as your weakest link.
Right.
I needed to go through that training, and you build so much mental fortitude. It's like that moment when you feel like giving up, and you refrain from giving up. The mental callus that it builds, where a point comes where I just told you about how I grew up wanting to please my parents and all these different things, and then the pain it felt to disappoint the other recruits because you messed up, right? But then you have to get over all of that to get through. A point has to come where you're like, all right, yeah, I messed up, but everybody messes up. Everybody messes up, and in order to get to the finish line, a point comes where you have to resist the urge to want to please others and just focus on yourself to get to that finish line. And so being able to go through that process, that helped my mental health so much. Now post that, graduating from the police academy, the most difficult part for me was putting handcuffs on my people. It was tough. It was tough because I felt like a traitor. It's like you're trained to do certain things the right way, but you start to see that the training and what's on paper is completely different from what you have to really practice in the streets. Even from simple handcuffing, and I won't go too much into that, but everything that I was taught as a child, Raheem, be careful this, you're a black man this, you're a black man that, everything I was taught was justified, and so to be on the opposite end, inflicting that, and not necessarily inflicting negativity, but being that image of that, that was just tough for me. And I had to accept that that's not for me. And then by the grace of Allah, I got accepted into law school, and being in law enforcement helped me so much in terms of my journey to becoming an attorney. Now, just 1 hour a year in itself is like pledging. I'm talking about mental pledging. Like we were courting at the time. I was not sleeping. I'm talking about probably like 2 hours, 1 hour if I get lucky, just studying. And the minister talks about how we could become anything that we want to be, and we could master anything that we want to master if we put complete concentration on mastering it. That's what I had to do in order to get through 1 hour a year. I just had to, growing up the way I grew up, I had my siblings, and usually our friends would say Raheem is he's the dumb twin, or Raheem is the dumb sibling, because I didn't do well in school growing up. And I found that it was very difficult for me to learn the same way others learned. And now I was in law school, and I had to realize that, yeah, I don't learn like everybody else. And I had to learn how I learn, and not try to compare myself with other people, and own how I learn. And when I learned that, look, it may take somebody 2 hours to do something, it's going to probably take me 4 hours to master something, you know? And so I had to do that. If that meant I had to get the book and I had to write it out, that's what I had to do. If that meant I had to go run and then come back and study, that's what I had to do. If it meant I couldn't sleep, I couldn't sleep. So that in itself, that was blessing my mental health, you know, because when I saw the outcome of that work, I was like, praise be to Allah, you know. It just reassured me that anything that I set my mind to achieve, I could achieve it by the grace and the mercy of the God and the work that I put in. And so seeing that, it just fortifies my mental health.
Yeah, and it's something else that you mentioned that I actually wanted to talk about because, you know, last week, for those of you who saw, I had my brother, who's a twin, be interviewed, and Raheem is also a twin.
Yeah,
so what was that experience like? Being a twin and being compared to your twin. Let's start with that question, and then I want to also touch on, you know, you and his relationship. You know, like, do y'all talk about mental health? Because my brother shared that him and his twin don't really, you know, have deep conversations and may just be a little bit surface level. So I want to start with, one, your experience growing up with a twin and, you know, what that was like being compared to him. And then two, maybe reflect on your relationship now.
Man, growing up with a twin, it was a blessing. First off, I'll start with that. It was a blessing. It was annoying at times because my mom used to have us dressed the same for a minute.
That's always cute, though.
No, it's not.
It's cute.
It's not. You know, my mom would have us dressed the same. I used to be like, Mom, like, I'm not trying to wear that. And I was the twin that when we wore clothes, like, as soon as I got to school, I'll tuck my shirt out, you know, sag my pants a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
I was wild. I was wild. So, my brother was like, for the most part, growing up, he was really like the moral compass. My brother was the moral compass. He would be like, Raheem, we can't do that. And I don't know, we'll alternate. Sometimes he'll be the moral, but he was for the most part the moral compass. Man, we'd get jumped together, you know. We had fun.
No. Getting jumped is fun, guys. I don't know.
No, we had each other's back, you know. But it also had some cons where we would have some people say, okay, this twin looks better than that twin. It was just like, what? You know, where we would start competing with each other in certain ways. I think for me, the hardest part in that comparison was the intellect part. My brother would do great in school, and because of me, he would have to go to summer school.
Sorry, Rockman.
Rockman loyal. He's loyal. My mom and dad would make him go to summer school with me because they'll say you can't leave him by himself. And I'll be pissed because I want to go to summer school by myself, so I chill with the homies.
Oh my gosh.
But overall, it was great. It was great, minus the comparing, because that definitely did damage to the both of us, where people would be compared all the time. They would call me the bad twin and call him the good twin, or vice versa. In terms of mental health, we've definitely had several conversations on mental health. We've gone through a lot together, a lot. We've seen each other transition. We've had moments where we weren't as close as we were prior. I think we're getting back to being really tight, having each other's back, because it's important, you know. And we feel each other. When something is wrong with him, like it's true, I feel it. And when something is wrong with me, I think he feels it. Um, Probably like not literal physical
No, I
pain,
understand.
but we could sense it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I was in the womb with this guy. You know, so we do have occasional conversations, deep in depth conversations about our mental health, and we also talk about the importance of exercise. I think that's something that we're both really getting into, like focusing on, yes, taking care of our families and making sure our families are good, because that's a priority. But we're also we're taking priority and making sure our health is good, because if our health is not good, we can't take care of our families.
Right.
You know, or at least it's not sustainable
No,
to
I.
do it for a
Mm-hmm.
long period of time, because we want to see our great grandchildren. You know, and so that's something we're definitely discussing, and our future business ventures together. And yeah, we try not to complain at each other. You know, we don't. It's like that complaining stuff. We don't really do it. It's like what could we both do to support each other to improve? That's what we discuss.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah,
So you two are both family men,
we are. We
right?
are.
Uh,
You're my wife.
oh my gosh, girl dads.
Girl dads, inshallah, yeah.
Inshallah.
Coming
So
soon.
how we're clearly not there yet, right? But how do you think
Where you
that, as far as like I haven't given birth yet.
Oh, okay.
uh, anyway, how do you think that experience, or even the journey so far of
Yeah.
growing into becoming a father,
Yeah.
how has that changed? Maybe just your mindset, not even just mental health, but your mindset, your experiences, um, your perspective on things. Becoming a girl dad, how has that
Wow.
kind of affected you?
Man, that's a deep one. You sure you want to ask me this? Man, it's a beautiful thing. I think being blessed to see my brother go through it 4 years before me
Mm-hmm.
makes the journey, I don't want to say easier,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like I have a blueprint. He
Yeah.
set such a great example for me.
Aww.
Where it's like,
Aw, you love your brother.
of course, but he set such a great example for me. Where it's like, I could do it too. You know, I don't know if I would have been more nervous if I didn't see my brother do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, I think I'm less nervous because I saw him set such a great example for me.
Beautiful.
And one thing he never did was complain.
Mm.
You know, he never complained. And then having my father be such a great example, I think for me, in terms of mental health or where my mindset is at, knowing I'm gonna have a daughter, it just pushes me to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Like really working on my mental health, really being more, because I don't have the time to not question, and not being hard on myself, but like holding myself accountable, because I want to be the best example I can be for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want her. I want to be the best husband to you, so my daughter could know what she should look for in a man. You know, and I've done some things in the past, you know, and I ask Allah, please forgive me. You know, but you know, when you're a child, you think like a child. You know, and I want to improve myself and qualify myself to be an example dad for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when I found out we were having a daughter, for me it put me in this different state of mind, like grind. And when I say grind, it's not just financially, but spiritually as well.
Right.
You know, armoring myself with the divine teachings that we have, um, improving physically, like improving mentally. I think one of the most important things is like being very cautious of who I'm around, what I listen to.
Yeah.
You know, because my company is what could determine how I think and how I treat you,
Mm-hmm.
and how I'm gonna eventually treat my daughter. So it just made me so much more conscious of who I'm around. And when somebody starts talking about something that is negative, I'm just like, yo, honestly,
Yeah, I feel like you can't take it.
I don't want to hear it. Like, and it probably comes off like, yo, this dude is like dismissive, but I don't have the capacity,
Right.
because I'm thinking about my daughter. Like, I'm thinking about how I want to achieve this. I want to do this. I have certain goals that I need to achieve, and it's like, if you're not helping me get there, this probably sounds selfish, but hey, I just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's where I'm at with it. That's
Okay.
where I'm at.
I have a couple more questions. Um, you know, I hear you saying, kind of, when you talk to your brother, for example, you don't complain, right? Um, do you feel, and have you felt growing up, that you had the space to, I don't want to say complain, but be vulnerable and talk about maybe some things that you were struggling with? Did you have that space or environment growing up? And, even now, do you feel you have the space, the opportunity to be vulnerable?
I think it's important to be vulnerable at certain moments, and I have certain people that are in my corner for that.
Mm-hmm.
I know who they are. Like, shout out to my Uncle Aaron.
I knew you were gonna say.
Man, that man, all praises due to Allah.
Mm-hmm.
My father. There's certain things that I could discuss with my uncle that I can't discuss with my biological father.
No, I understand.
But there's certain things, conversations that I have with my father that just gives me so much peace. Before all of that, going to the God, though. I'm going to the God, like, just taking out my prayer rug, and it works. Like, if I gotta cry to the God, cry to the God and just ask Allah for help, for assistance. Even with certain struggles of self that I have, that I just go to the God and I'm like, Allah, please help me. Like, give me the strength to conquer this weakness. And that's where I really get vulnerable. Growing up, I didn't really have that. I couldn't go to my mom and she'd be like, no, pull fear, man. Like, that means if you don't get out of here, I'll slap your face. She didn't want to hear that. My dad was always working. My siblings, I was very emotional. I'm still an emotional being, and I don't think anything is wrong with that. I've learned to own that. I thought something was wrong with that growing up. And we're taught rise above emotion and come into the thinking of Allah. But it doesn't say don't have emotions.
Right.
It says rise above it and come into the thinking, because we're going to have our emotions. And now it's about learning how to control those emotions so we're not acting on it.
Right.
But we still have to manifest how we feel in the right way. Right? And so that's what I'm on the journey of yes, being emotional, but learning how to control that emotion so I don't act out on that emotion. And so growing up, for me, I was skinny, and because I was skinny and I wasn't like my twin, they would compare us, and I was the skinny twin, and I was the youngest. So in the way I grew up, you being the youngest, you got everything last. So let's just say we got some pizza, which we rarely ate. If I got everything last, that means I got the smallest slice. Growing up like that, it was like, all right, yeah, I gotta fight. I gotta fight. And so, feeling weak as a child, to mask that, I would use anger to mask that feeling of insecurity. And so when I would get in fights, or I would feel the need to fight to get what I wanted, that was me expressing my vulnerability and not knowing it. But then after I would do that, I would get beat. I would get beat, And so I never felt like I had that space to express myself, and I felt like if I would express it to my siblings, they would like look at me in a certain type of way, which was understandable. But when I went through certain things, and I think best one of the best processes that I went through, first off, is becoming a registered FOI, right? And certain things that I was taught by the regional captain, Brother Rob, Brother Khalif, certain things just, not that I had the space to express myself and be vulnerable, but it just trained me on how to express my emotions better, if that makes sense, right? And I thank Allah for that process. And then Pledging Alpha, believe it or not, really, really gave me a space to express my emotions, and I'm not gonna get into that, but it gave me this sense of I was able to express myself fully, like through the process, and not be judged, So that was kind of long-winded, but
So you feel basically that you have the space now. It sounds like you didn't have it growing up.
I didn't have it growing up,
but through different processes, through different men in your life, you were able to be you.
Yeah, I learned how to create the space, and just know that there's certain people that are out there that you could be vulnerable with, and it's important to be vulnerable with. But I learned that it's not advisable, in my opinion, to be vulnerable with everybody.
Right.
You
have your trusted people.
You have your people. And I found it that a lot of people want black men to be vulnerable, but as soon as we express that, it's usually used against us, believe it or not. And that's why I'm so appreciative of this show, because I think it's very, very important. I don't want to be too long-winded.
Okay. So I think the last thing that we can kind of wrap up with is, if you think back to your darkest moment, and you've had a lot of experiences, a lot of trauma, right?
Yeah.
When you think back to some of your darkest moments, what helped you to get out of that? And what advice would you give to other young black men who might be in that space? Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Prayer, listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, like just his words. If you're not even listening to his words, you're just hearing his voice. Oh my God. The minister saved my life. Having my father, having my moms, regardless of what they say that may hurt, learning to accept your own and be yourself, and accept your flaws and owning it so you could improve. Having certain uncles in my life, having a great partner that could make or break you. Exercise. The medicine book, reading the Holy Quran. I've been in some dark moments, and randomly just pick up that Holy Quran, open it up, and Allah will guide you to what you need to read. Also, and a lot of people have different perspectives on this, but therapy helped me a lot. And I used it, and I would use the teaching after I would have a therapy session. I'll go read Closing the Gap, and that helped me. And so I think what I could say to other young brothers or brothers in particular,
especially if I could just interject,
yeah,
especially those who may not have their father, because I know you have a very close relationship with your father. He's helped you a lot. He's been an excellent role model. But even for those who, I'm thinking, who were like you when you were younger, who are maybe like getting into trouble, who might be struggling in school, and not that you were seen this way, but a lot of young black men are seen as lost causes, right? Young boys who might be acting out or just struggling, and again don't necessarily have those role models in their lives, and maybe they want to become a lawyer or they want to go into the police force, but right now it's looking like that's not a possibility for them. That's not a reality. What advice would you give to those brothers?
Those brothers, look, those brothers are the strongest brothers out there, and whatever they put their mind on, they could achieve it. Look, those young brothers, when they want to knock somebody out, they'll knock them out. And that's the willpower they have. It's just more so they have to be placed in the right environment. So I would really tell those young brothers to choose their friends wisely, because that could make or break you. Choose their friends wisely. Surround themselves in the right environment, which is hard to do. I was fortunate. I had great parents. I had the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I would really say seclude yourself for some time and challenge yourself to achieve something. And once you achieve that one thing, keep it personal. You don't have to tell anybody. Once you achieve that one thing, you could always reference it. For me, I was terrible at math in elementary school. My mom got me the math doctor, Dr. Shahid, and I started teaching myself, right? Geometry, algebra. I started teaching myself after school because teachers couldn't teach me. They did not have the patience to teach me. And I say that to say, once I started teaching myself and I started getting better in middle school, till this day I reference that. And so I would tell these young brothers, whether it's boxing or martial arts, find a skill set and teach yourself it. And after you teach yourself that, you'll realize that you could achieve whatever your mind could conceive. You got it. That's it.
Love it. Is there anything else that you'd want to share, or any additional advice you'd like to give? Anything else as your last closing thoughts?
Look, I thank Allah for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan first. I thank Allah for our teachings. I thank Allah for having great parents. I thank Allah for having an amazing wife, partner. And be careful how you think. Be careful how you think. You shape your own reality, and the thoughts that you have could become a reality, or will become a reality, I should say. So just be very careful how you think. Be careful what you listen to. Be careful who you're around. Be careful what you entertain. And just know that whatever you desire to achieve, if you put your mind and your full concentration on it, it's yours. That's all I'll say.
Well, I definitely appreciate you, coming on this mini-series.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
I think it was very important to have your perspective as, someone who's aspiring to be a lawyer, who will be a lawyer, inshallah, someone who is a husband, a soon-to-be father, a black man in America, right? And I think that you have been, both on and off the camera, very open and honest and transparent and vulnerable with where you're at mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And it was very important for me to have these kind of conversations with black men. So I really appreciate it. So thank you for taking the time out and being on the show.
Thank you for taking the time to do this. Black men, I think we all appreciate this. And we're grateful, and may Allah continue to bless you to fulfill things like this. Yeah, I'm proud of you, babe.
All right, so this is the second to last episode of the My Brother's Keeper mini-series. Check us out next week for our last and final episode, interviewing Black men on their mental health.